In a small bustling village in Nigeria, there lived a girl named Chiamaka. She was the youngest daughter in her family and known for her lively spirit and endless dreams. Chiamaka's father, Amadi, was a strict and hard-working farmer who believed in the values of discipline and obedience. He had high expectations for all his children, including Chiamaka. Her mother, Nkiru, was kind and nurturing, but often too busy with household chores and caring for the other children to pay much attention to Chiamaka's dreams. Chiamaka was different from her siblings. While they followed their father's instructions without question, Chiamaka was often lost in her thoughts, dreaming of a life beyond the boundaries of their village. She was not interested in farming and often found ways to avoid her chores, preferring instead to sit under the large mango tree near their house and imagine a world full of adventure and excitement. One day, Chiamaka overheard her father talking to her mother about her future. Amadi had found a wealthy man in a neighboring village who was interested in marrying Chiamaka. He believed this would secure a better future for her and bring honor to the family. However, Chiamaka did not share her father's enthusiasm. She did not want to be married off to a man she had never met. She wanted to see the world and live her life on her own terms. That night, Chiamaka lay awake in bed, her mind racing. She knew she had to leave the village if she wanted to avoid the arranged marriage. The thought of running away was terrifying, but the desire for freedom and adventure was stronger. She decided that the next night she would leave for Lagos, the big city she had heard so much about. The following night, while everyone was asleep, Chiamaka quietly packed a small bag with her clothes and some food. She slipped out of the house and walked towards the main road, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. She waited for hours until a bus came by, heading to Lagos. She used the little money she had saved to buy a ticket and boarded the bus, leaving her village and family behind. When Chiamaka arrived in Lagos, she was awestruck by the tall buildings, bright lights, and the sheer number of people bustling about. It was everything she had imagined and more. But as the days went by, the excitement began to fade. She wandered the streets, unsure of where to go or what to do. Her money quickly ran out, and she had no place to stay. Hunger and exhaustion soon took over, and Chiamaka realized that surviving in Lagos was much harder than she had anticipated. One evening, as she sat on a bench, tired and hungry, a woman named Aisha approached her. Aisha was friendly and seemed genuinely concerned about Chiamaka's plight. She offered her a place to stay and some food. Desperate and with no other options, Chiamaka accepted the offer, grateful for the kindness. Aisha's apartment was small but comfortable. For the first time in days, Chiamaka felt safe and hopeful. Aisha told Chiamaka that she could help her find a job and start a new life in Lagos. Chiamaka was excited and eager to begin, but soon Chiamaka realized that Aisha's intentions were not as noble as they seemed. Aisha introduced Chiamaka to a world she had never known existed, a world of prostitution. At first, Chiamaka was shocked and refused to participate, but Aisha was persistent. She told Chiamaka that in Lagos, it was hard to survive without money, and this was the quickest way to earn it. Chiamaka felt trapped. She had no money to return home and no other means to support herself. Reluctantly, she agreed to Aisha's plan. The first few weeks were the hardest for Chiamaka. She felt ashamed and degraded. She missed her family and the simplicity of village life. But as time went on, she became desensitized to her new reality. She started making money, more than she had ever seen before. She sent a small portion of it back to her family, pretending that she had found a legitimate job in the city. Her family was relieved and proud, unaware of the truth. As the years went by, Chiamaka's life in Lagos became more and more difficult. She got involved with dangerous people and started using drugs to cope with the pain and shame she felt. The drugs took a toll on her health, and she became very sick. Her once beautiful appearance faded, and she lost many of her customers. She struggled to make enough money to survive. One night, during a police raid, Chiamaka was arrested along with several other women. She spent several months in jail. When she was finally released, she had nowhere to go. She was homeless, sick, and alone. She thought often of her family and the village she had left behind. She missed them terribly and wished she could go back and make things right. Back in her village, Chiamaka's family had not heard from her in a long time. They were worried and missed her. Amadi regretted being so strict with her. He realized that he had pushed her away. He wished he could tell her how sorry he was and how much he loved her. After a long time of suffering in Lagos, Chiamaka decided to return to her village. She was weak and very sick, but she managed to find a bus that would take her close to home. She was ashamed and scared to face her family, but she had no other choice. When Chiamaka arrived in her village, she was very different from the girl who had left years ago. She was thin, tired, and sick. People in the village whispered and pointed at her. She felt very ashamed. Chiamaka walked slowly to her father's house. She stood at the door, afraid to knock. Finally, she gathered her courage and knocked on the door. Her mother, Nkiru, opened the door and gasped when she saw Chiamaka. She did not recognize her at first. "Chiamaka, is that you?" Nkiru asked, her voice shaking. "Yes, Mama, it is me," Chiamaka replied, tears streaming down her face. Nkiru hugged Chiamaka tightly, crying. Amadi came to the door and saw his daughter. He was shocked and filled with guilt. He walked up to Chiamaka and hugged her too. Chiamaka stayed with her family, trying to recover from her illness, but the shame of what she had done hung over her like a dark cloud. People in the village gossiped about her. They treated her differently. Chiamaka felt alone and sad. She knew she had brought shame to her family. Despite everything, Nkiru and Amadi took care of Chiamaka. They loved her and wanted her to get better. But Chiamaka's health continued to decline. She knew she did not have much time left. Chiamaka wanted to make things right before it was too late. She decided to tell her family the truth about what had happened in Lagos. One evening, as they sat around the fire, she told them everything. "I am sorry for the shame I brought to our family," Chiamaka said, her voice trembling. "I wanted to find a better life, but I made many mistakes. I hope you can forgive me." Nkiru and Amadi listened quietly. They were sad and hurt by what they heard, but they still loved Chiamaka. Amadi took her hand and said, "We forgive you, Chiamaka. We love you, and we are glad you came back home." Chiamaka felt a little better after hearing her father's words, but she still felt the weight of her mistakes. She wished she could go back and change the past, but she knew it was not possible. As the days went by, Chiamaka's health got worse. She spent most of her time resting and thinking about her life. She hoped that other young girls would learn from her story and not make the same mistakes she did. One evening, as the sun was setting, Chiamaka called her family to her side. She knew her time was near. She held her mother's hand and said, "Thank you for taking care of me. I love you all." With her family around her, Chiamaka took her last breath. She passed away peacefully, knowing that she was loved and forgiven. The village mourned Chiamaka's death. Despite her mistakes, she was still part of their community. Her family buried her with love and respect. Chiamaka's story was told to the young girls in the village as a lesson. They learned about the dangers of running away and the importance of making good choices. Chiamaka's life was a reminder to everyone that love and forgiveness are powerful, even in the face of shame and mistakes. Amadi and Nkiru continued to share Chiamaka's story, hoping it would prevent other girls from making the same mistakes. They spoke about the importance of communication and understanding within families. They wanted other parents to learn from their experience and to listen to their children's dreams and fears. Chiamaka's siblings also carried her story with them. They made sure to talk to their own children about the lessons they had learned from Chiamaka's life. They wanted to honor her memory by helping others avoid the same pitfalls. Over time, Chiamaka's story became a part of the village's history. It was told and retold, each time emphasizing the importance of love, forgiveness, and making wise choices. The villagers remembered Chiamaka not just for her mistakes, but for her courage in facing them and seeking forgiveness. Moral lessons from Chiamaka's story. 1. The importance of open communication and understanding in families. Chiamaka's decision to run away was influenced by her fear of her father's strictness and the arranged marriage. If Chiamaka had felt comfortable enough to talk openly with her parents about her dreams and fears, perhaps they could have found a solution together. This highlights the importance of creating an environment where children feel safe to express their thoughts and aspirations. Parents should strive to listen and understand their children, fostering mutual respect and communication. 2. The consequences of making uninformed and rash decisions. Chiamaka's impulsive decision to run away to Lagos without proper planning or understanding of the challenges ahead led her down a difficult and dangerous path. Her story teaches the importance of making well-considered decisions, seeking advice from trusted individuals, and thinking about the long-term consequences of our actions. Taking the time to plan and consider different perspectives can prevent many hardships and regrets. Bible verse to learn from Chiamaka's story. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. This verse reminds us that God has a plan for each of us. A plan filled with hope and a good future. Trusting in God's plan can provide guidance and reassurance, even when we face difficult choices and uncertain circumstances.